I do want to thank you for having me. It's really an honor for me to be able to tell the story of Little River Wetlands Project and to connect with my fellow naturalists and conservationists. I have a real warm spot in my heart for the Indiana Naturalist. So tonight what I'm going to be covering is a little bit about who is Little River Wetlands Project. You'll be seeing LRWP on there a lot. That's our little acronym short for Little River Wetlands Project. Just for the sake of space, I abbreviate on here. But I'll talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, and why we exist. For those of you who don't know. And I can't really tell that story without talking a little bit about wetlands and why they matter and why here in Fort Wayne. What's the connection there? So I'll talk about that as part of our story. And then I will talk at the end about different ways you can get involved here, either in your continuing learning as a master naturalist, or if you would like to be of service and volunteer. A little bit about myself. Jan mentioned to you a little bit about my background, that I do have a love for restoration work and a love for nonprofit management. I came on here, I said yes to this job on Earth Day in 2024, which was a really special anniversary now for me. So almost a year and a half. I really love leading this organization. I first got involved here back in 2007 or 2008. Doing some volunteer work. I ended up doing most of my volunteer hours for the Master Naturalist program, right out here in Eagle Marsh, clipping Phragmites seed heads. Back to Little River Wetlands and what we're about. In a nutshell, what we're doing is we're protecting over 1,300 acres of wetlands in the Little River Valley. This is a picture of our barn. So I can get my pointer to work. There we go. That little guy right there is our barn. It doesn't quite look like that right now. It's been painted, but this is what used to be a field. It used to be a cornfield that we bought and restored into wetlands. This is Eagle Marsh. We're now at, I think tomorrow actually is Eagle Marsh's birthday. 20 years old tomorrow. So I love this picture because it kind of just shows you what you can do. So that's really, in a nutshell, what we're doing is we're protecting wetlands in the valley. Our mission, basically, if you can remember 3 words, sums it up nicely. We restore, we protect, and we educate. So our mission is to restore and protect wetlands in the historic watershed of the Little River, which is a tributary of the Wabash River. And our mission is to provide educational opportunities that encourage good stewardship of wetlands and other natural ecosystems. So mission is to restore, protect, and educate. And I'll be breaking those down one by one and talking a little bit more about how we do that. But first, I feel like we can't go into that until you understand a little bit about why our mission is about wetlands. Why wetlands and why here? So let me talk about that real briefly. I won't go into a lot of detail. I am not a geologist, but here's a very simple drawing that kind of explains it a little bit in a nutshell. So most of you, since you're master naturalists, understand about glacial moraines. This was the Fort Wayne moraine here, which is on the northeast side of the county, I believe. So again, as a glacier moves, it's pushing up all that soil and rock in its path, and it mounds it up. So it kind of created this basically mini hill. The glacier then melted, which made glacial Lake Maumee. Oops. Right here. This was the lake. And it stayed that way for a long time until the lake broke through the moraine. The moraine failed, and all of that water from Lake Maumee gushed through the moraine and created this huge torrent that basically tore through and carved out what became the Little River. And that's right in this path from like here all the way out to Huntington. So there's a little valley, the Little River Valley it's about a half-mile wide, not very deep actually, but if you go out on, let me get my bearings, out on Jefferson, you know the village of Coventry is. If you take a left there by Rural King, and you're going down that road, I think it's Ellison right there. Right after you get past Rural King, the road goes down. You're kind of at the top of the hill, and you can actually see it going down toward the railroad tracks. And that's the valley right there. That's the Little River Valley. It's not very deep, but you can absolutely see it. And it just kind of runs from that way all the way out to Huntington. So where those waters landed, those waters stayed there for thousands of years. It became the Great Marsh. So it became hydric soil, full of wildlife, and the Native Americans used it for fishing and hunting, and it was a robust and really healthy ecosystem. Fast forward then to the 1800s when settlement is happening and the pioneers are moving westward. They hit this great marsh. It's really hard to travel in it. It's full of mosquitoes. They don't like it. They can't use the land. So little by little it starts to get drained. And so they start to drain it and ditch it and draining the water off. So we start losing then that wetland. So that's kind of the geologic basis for it, for our work. But additionally, this is another significant thing is so this is Eagle Marsh right here, this green spot. This red line is actually the Continental Divide. So all the water and rainfall that happens to the east goes this way up to the Maumee River and up to the Great Lakes. And anything west of here goes south and southwest to the Little River, into the Wabash River, and eventually down into the Gulf of Mexico. So this spot right here, right out here, Eagle Marsh, is a really significant place because we are protecting cleaning water for both watersheds, both the Mississippi watershed and the Great Lakes Basin. So that's another reason why this location is so significant. With all the development and the drainage, little by little, we're down to just under 15% of our historic wetlands left in Indiana. So it's concerning that they're being destroyed little by little. Some people ask, so who cares? Wetlands are just nasty little mosquito breeding, marshy, ugly places, but they actually serve a lot of really important functions. And you'll hear this term a lot, wetland functions. So some of the basic ones are they improve water quality. They act as a great store for floodwaters. They provide habitat, and they provide recreation. And I'm going to talk real quickly about each one of those. First of all, improving water quality. You'll see here in the picture, some of these plants are quite tall, but one of the unique things about native plants and wetland plants in particular is if you have a plant that's, say, I'm 5 feet tall, a little bit over 5 feet tall, the roots of those plants can easily be twice that tall. So the plant might be 5 feet, but the roots might go down 10 feet. So as water comes into the marsh and trickles down, whether it's trickling down back into the water table or whether it's flowing downstream, either way it has to go through that complex web of roots, which is full of little hairs and all the little branches of the root system, which ends up cleaning that water as it goes. So it absorbs pollutants, it removes sediment, and the water coming out on the other side is much, much cleaner. It also absorbs excess nutrients, and it slows the water flow down. So rather than gushing through and cutting through an area and eroding and picking up soil and sediment as it goes and coming out on the other end muddy, the wetlands slow the whole thing down so it's like seeping instead of gushing. So that's another way that it cleans water. It also serves as a really effective storage for water. We like to talk about wetlands being like a giant sponge. Again, those roots, those plants hold that water really well, just sucks it up and holds it. And then it can just slowly trickle back down to recharge the water table, or it can flow downstream over time, but basically it gets held in the wetland. One of my favorite statistics is that each acre of wetland can hold up to 1 million gallons of water. So an acre only like 1 foot deep will be like 1 million gallons of water. That's according to the Indiana Department of Environmental Management. So that's a pretty cool story. Wetlands also provide critical habitat. There are more than 60 animal species and 120 plant species that are dependent on wetlands and that are listed as either endangered, threatened, of special concern, or rare in Indiana. So if we didn't have wetlands, there's a whole cascade of things that would die out, which would really start collapsing the ecosystem. Here are just a few that are out here at Eagle Marsh. We got, of course, the monarch butterflies, which is now on, I believe, did it make it the endangered species list this year? I know the legislation was pushing for that, but we all know that monarch populations have been in rapid decline. So this is one species that we do a lot of support around here at Little River Wetlands. Blanding's turtles down on the far left, we had some sightings. We do actually have Blanding's turtles out here, which is an endangered species, and the long-eared bat, along with some other kinds of bats that are rare and threatened. So it's pretty cool that in just a short 20 years, we converted this flooded cornfield to this ecosystem that's now supporting threatened and endangered species. And lastly, the last function of wetlands is that it's a great place for recreation and learning. You can see here's the little kids off to the side. So excited about what they're experiencing. Bird watchers, hiking. I even have some kayakers now and again who enjoy the waters. So that's a nice way to engage with nature. And it's a real treat to have a wetland of this size right here in an urban setting as well. So that's the reason why wetlands are here. That's the reason why wetlands are important. And so how that turned into Little River Wetlands being birthed is back in 1990, there was a group of citizens who saw the constant flooding. This picture right here was a picture of a flooded cornfield that would flood year after year. And there was the city was struggling with the rivers just not being able to keep up with storm events, and so we had massive flooding, destruction of property, and so they started asking the question, what can we do? What can we do to fix this problem? So a lot of conservationists put their heads together and said, oh, if you're going to do anything out southwest Fort Wayne, the Little River Valley, it's all wetland soil, it's hydric soil. It wants to be a wetland. So if you're going to do anything to remedy the flooding problem, that's where you should start. So they put their heads together and started this this organization. So we are a nonprofit organization, and we are a land trust, which basically means that we are here to protect land. Once we acquire land, it is held in trust, so it means we basically protect it forever. We care for it and protect it forever. It can never be developed, and we will not sell it. So it's very similar to Acres Land Trust, which many of you have heard of. So we're structured the same way, just that we're very focused on wetlands specifically. So here are the 4 organizations that collaborated with us: Stockbridge Audubon, the Isaac Walton League of America, Acres Land Trust, and the Fox Island Alliance. They each had their own separate missions that they were working on, but they all recognized that we had a crisis here with the wetlands which were disappearing. So each of those organizations contributed someone from their board to help be on the board of Little River Wetlands Project and get this organization off the ground. So So it's, from the very beginning, we've been a collaborative community organization. Here are just some fun pictures of some of the flooding that has happened. These are mostly at Eagle Marsh, I believe. There's the barn being flooded right here. This is before we had built up the road. So if you wanted to get to the barn, you had to hop in a kayak to get out there. Here's the flooded picnic tables over here. And so you see we get just lots and lots of water out here. And so you can see why when this was a cornfield, which really wasn't very successful as a farming operation. So that's a little bit about how we got started. Now I want to just talk about what it is we do, back to our mission, restore, protect, and educate. So I'm going to go through each one of these real quickly. So restoring land basically means we're caring for it. So what will happen, here's a picture on the right of the same piece of land. The top one is in 2006 when it was just a soybean field that we acquired from a farmer. And then in 2019, it's the same picture, and you can see it looks a little, scraggly maybe, but if you were to zoom in, each one of those is just, it's a really diverse collection of wetland plants. And there's a lot going on in from a biodiversity point of view. So what our process will be is when we obtain a piece of land that's degraded, the first thing we try to do is reestablish the hydrology or reestablish the water flow. So if there are drainage tiles on that property, we'll break those tiles or remove them so the water stops flowing off and it can start being held on the site. If there are invasive species, we'll try to remove those, or if in this case it was a cornfield, we'll get rid of the crops and then overseed it or replant it then with native species. One of our biggest challenges of restoring and caring for the land is managing invasive species. Here are some of the common ones that are a thorn in our side. The top left is a great example of reed canary grass, which is just a real bear to get rid of. It requires a good 1.5 to 2 years of constant treatment. You have to mow, spray, burn, spray, overseed, burn. It's just like, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of money actually to make progress on that one. On the right is Phragmites. This is the one that got me christened into Little River Wetlands. Those big fluffy seed heads each have 1,000 seeds per head. And they're like a big feather duster. So my job was to go out with the clippers and a big old garbage bag and clip the seed head and throw it in the bag just so those seeds wouldn't burst and, provide the bank for the next year's crop. Bottom left is calorie pair. I know a lot of you in this room have worked on the calorie pair problem on our preserve. I know a lot of you have. Becky, how many did you say you removed that for the Avalas? 500, was it? Arrowhead? All of them. So it's another nest. They're beautiful, right? When they're in bloom, they're very pretty, but that's exactly what happens. They just spread and spread and spread, and they will absolutely take over an area. Bottom right is a picture of a controlled burn. This is one of the methods that we will employ to knock back some of those plants. It's a little more cost-effective and efficient than spraying or mowing or pulling. Once we have an area cleared, then we keep trying to encourage native habitats. So we'll plant native plants. So top left would be an example of what it might look like. We do try to have a blend of grasses and forbs. Those are the tall, strong ones that provide some structure, helps keep things upright. And of course we want to mix in lots of flowering things as well. The flowering things are beautiful and they are great for pollinators, but they tend to flop if they're left by themselves. So intermixing those with the grasses helps the whole thing kind of stay upright. And each plant serves its own different function. It will attract different kinds of wildlife, whether it's a food source for a caterpillar, or seeds for birds, or mice like to chew on things too. So all kinds of things depend on the plants. This is a few pictures of what you might see out in a native restoration. So that was our first aspect of our mission, the restore part. The second part is to protect. So our goal is really to safeguard wetlands. One of the ways we do that is we try to acquire land, and so we'll hold it in trust and we try to restore it back into a wetland. We don't have to be the owner, though, of all this land in order to protect wetlands. We also try to work with landowners who are in the valley, whether it's farmers or whoever, and say, you know, if you would like to sell your land to us when you get tired of, if you're ready to retire and you don't want to do farming anymore and you want to sell it to us, please talk to us before you talk to a developer who might turn it into a shopping mall. So one of our goals is to prevent development of the wetlands, because once those are lost, they're kind of lost forever. So we do a lot of collaboration with our farmer friends. But some of the landowners want to hold on to the land themselves, but they have sections of it that are too wet to farm effectively, and so we'll coach them and guide them on how they could put their land into a wetland reserve program and take the wettest sections and restore it into wetland, so they can keep farming part while they put others in a wetland program. Another way we can protect land is to hold a conservation easement on someone's property. This was kind of a big thing we were pushing maybe 15 years ago. We've kind of gotten away from it because they are a little bit of a legal burden. But basically, if a homeowner would like to maintain ownership of the land but want to protect it from development, they can let us put a conservation easement on it, which means they are committing to forever prevent that land from being developed. For instance, we hold a conservation easement on part of the land over at LC Nature Park. That was kind of one of the first things they did. It's a little fun fact. I have a couple diagrams I just want to show you. As we contemplate further land acquisition transactions, I want to tell you how we make those decisions. So this is a diagram of the Little River watershed and the valley. So it's a little hard to see, but you can see here there's like a rose-colored pink outline right here. So this map is the greater Fort Wayne area. Over here on the right is Monroeville, Huntertown at the top, North Manchester to the west, and then Markle, Decatur up to the south. So this little, if you can see my pointer, this is kind of the outline of the Little River watershed. So the water from those areas all flows to the Little River. So that's the first thing. The white strip down the middle is the Little River Valley. Right there. That's the Little River Valley. Our mission area, this is kind of a blown up version. So right here you see the white area. This is a blown up version. The blue is a blown up version of what you just saw on the previous slide. The stuff that's in the blue is what we call the hydric soils of the Little River Valley, or the wetland soils. These are the soils that are meant to be wetland. So this whole blue section really is our mission area. It's about 25,000 acres. It basically starts here at Eel Marsh, runs west to Huntington, where it joins in with the Wabash River. So you can see the orange areas are land that we own. And again, we're protecting about 1,380 acres, something like that, of 25,000. So we've got a good start, and we have a long way to go. Of that 25,000, there's probably 7,000 or 8,000 of it that is really high priority area for us. So these are the labels of our properties. So we have Eagle Marsh here in the middle, this one here, which most people are familiar with. Up the road to the south on Ingle Road is our Eagle Marsh East property. That's what we're calling it currently, for lack of a better name. And across the road, we have a mitigation property, which we co-own with the DNR. We also have Buttonbush Bottoms, a sweet little 25-acre place. And then our Arrowhead Preserves are over here. A new one down Station Road, which is right outside of Roanoke. And that's where my map cuts off. But then further down, we also own Little River Landing, which is right at the forks of the Wabash in Huntington. We co-own that with Acres Land Trust. That one is landlocked and not open to the public yet, because we haven't figured out a way to get people out there, short of us, voting or